Hey, this is Ramon. This is my Bible Basics. All right, so this is part 4. Okay, so no primary source exists for the Bible. None. No original language nor original scroll from the source period still exist. Anything that was recorded for prosperity from the original time period from when it was first recorded is gone. It's missing. Either it was still in oral form and didn't get written down until a later period, or if it was written down, those manuscripts have been destroyed by time and weather. So they just don't exist. All Christians were Catholic until the Reformation, unless you are an outside sect, which were called Gnostic. But they used a later text that they never claimed to be authentic. And that are these texts. Okay? The people following these texts didn't claim they were authentic texts. They claimed they were true texts because they were worshiping Sophia and they believed that knowledge, secret knowledge, was the key to salvation. They did not believe that Christ was the key to salvation, but knowledge. Understand, that's why they are not Christian. Okay? I know that we'll label them Gnostic Christians, but they weren't. They were just Gnostic. In fact, there's even Gnostic pagans. All right. Luther and the Protestant Reformation resulted from the Enlightenment, from the printing press, and from church scandal known as corruption. And much of this corruption was due to the ills brought about by the Borgias and the Borgia Pope. So when you're talking about the Protestant Reformation, understand that this is not a schism of theology like a lot of people like to present it as. It's a schism based on corruption of individuals in the church and Luther's disgust and horror at seeing this happen to a church that he loved. He loved the Catholic Church and he wanted the church to change. The church just refused. Protestant means protest. Okay? So for any Protestant out there who's watching this who doesn't get that, or any atheist out there who's never been religious and doesn't get that, there you go. It was not originally a theological difference. It was a problem of corruption of individuals in the Catholic Church, specifically the selling of indulgences, but that got blown out of proportion and got way bigger as the church refused to back down and didn't honor Martin Luther's request. Those differences will become more theological and more divisive when a guy named Calvin will come in and will take Luther's ideas even further. All right. The Bible is translated into 636 languages, and the New Testament by itself is translated into 1,442 languages. Thank you, Wikipedia. The Quran does proceed from the traditions of the Old and New Testament. So for anyone who still hasn't gotten this message, Muslims believe in Jesus, they believe in Moses. In fact, most Jews consider Islam closer to their religion than they consider Christians close to their religion. While as Christians and Catholics, we consider Judaism part of our faith, most Jews actually consider Islam to be a closer cousin. Okay? And this goes back to Ishmael and goes back to the fact that the Muslims usually follow halal laws, which are very similar to kosher laws, while most Christians, because of Paul and Peter, do not. Okay? So how do we understand the Bible? Through interpretation, from authority, from personal interpretation, from literary interpretation, literal interpretation, metaphorical interpretation, historical, also called critical interpretation, textual interpretation, also called critical interpretation, theological interpretation, and allegorical or metaphorical interpretation. Those are all the different ways to understand the Bible. Not everyone follows this. In fact, Protestants and Calvins have a hard time with interpretation by authority. They don't like that. They're sola scriptura, okay? They are not down or they're not cool with the whole authority thing, even though many of their apologists present themselves as authorities on the gospel. And that's how denominations break off and create new denominations, because they will disagree with some fundamental concept, sometimes not so fundamental, and they'll break off and start a new church. Of these interpretations, personally, I like the theological and the historical. Those are my two personal preferred ways of going when I'm trying to understand the Bible. As for understanding by authority, that just means that what you choose to believe is in concert or in accord with what the Roman Catholic Church has not declared a heresy. So as long as you don't believe a heresy, whatever you believe is fine. Every parish in the Catholic Church is allowed to believe its own thing, and every parishioner is allowed to believe their own thing, as long as those things are not heresies and they do not go against Catholic Church teaching. Catholic Church does not teach on everything. You want more information on this, read the Catechism. Or read Augustine, if that interests you. Most of the Old Testament was written post-Babylonian exile, and that will be a problem for many literalists. All right. Hey, this is Ramon, and I just want to make a quick correction. In my very previous video, I said 120 BC. I meant to say 120 AD for the cutoff for New Testament scripture to be considered official or legitimate by the church fathers and be considered part of the canon. So just to be clear, that was a mistake. I said 120 BC, and that was me misspeaking. I meant to say 120 AD, and that was the cutoff for New Testament scripture to be considered official in the canon of the Gospels, of the New Testament. Next video.